Hi, I'm Alison Hare, a former corporate executive documenting my journey to find a new way to live and work without burnout. Join me on the Late Learner podcast as we explore fresh approaches on often controversial topics, like really controversial topics. Today, we're tackling faith and your relationship with a higher power. Are you a strong believer, or have you left religion altogether? I am in the skeptical and disappointed category and have enrolled in an almost year-long program called Renew through Buckhead Church in Atlanta to explore my personal relationship with God. I brought in Father Dennis Dorner, a young Catholic priest in Atlanta, to help answer tough questions about faith, Christianity, and hypocrisy in the church, including how to support our friends in the transgender and LGBTQ plus community. Father Dennis is unapologetically honest and refreshingly unconventional in his approach, kind of like a young Father Richard Rourke. Today, you're going to learn to be as bold in love as others might be bold in hate. Check out previous episodes with me and Father Dennis in the show notes. Today, I'm going to be accompanied by my Renew mentor, Marilyn O'Neill. And before we get to our conversation with Father Dennis and Marilyn, let's get to the good stuff. What's the good stuff? Well, it's the surprisingly true, useful fun fact, the stuff. You might be planning summer vacations right now and trying to think of some fun, interesting ideas on where to go. And on the topic of religion, here are the 5 most beautiful churches in the world ranked by top travel experts. Number 5 is Notre Dame in Paris. Well, let's say it the right way. It's Notre Dame, right? Is that the right way? Number 4 is the Church of Hallgrimr in Reykjavik, Iceland. Not sure if I pronounced that right either. I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce any of these right. Number 3, Las Lajas Sanctuary in Colombia. Number 2, and this one is my personal favorite, Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, Spain. And number 1, any guesses what it could be? It might sound a little obvious, but I don't know. Think about all the churches that you have been to or seen. Number 1 is St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City in Italy. Whew! What would be on your list? Have you been to any of these? Would you put them on a list? I've linked the references in the show notes. Stay until the end of this episode for the second installment of the good stuff to close out the show. I found an interesting fact about how some Catholic traditions actually profoundly help the environment. So stay tuned for that. Here is our chat with Father Dennis and Marilyn O'Neill. All right, we've been waiting for this. This has been super exciting. So I am here with Father Dennis for the 3rd time on the show. Welcome back, Father Dennis.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much.
And we're here with Marilyn O'Neill. Marilyn O'Neill is my mentor. And on a previous episode, I have really been exploring my faith, or, kind of my lack of faith, my lack of belief. And Marilyn and I have been working together for months, kind of exploring what does that look like.
Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited
yes.
to be here today.
Welcome, Marilyn.
With you.
And so we just kept coming up with these unanswerable questions, and we're like, we need some muscle in here. So we got a Catholic priest.
Yes, which was a great idea.
I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
So, Father Dennis, you've been on the show before, and you were fascinating to me from the beginning. You're endlessly fascinating to me now. But you're a young Catholic priest. You have long hair, earrings. You have a style that is very much your own.
Yes.
And I would love to understand the origins of how you got in and why you chose this path as a priest, a Catholic priest in this time.
Oh, goodness. I mean, it's kind of funny. Anybody who's ever had a vocational call or feels called to something, it's hard to articulate exactly like why or how you got there. It's kind of a series of events that are kind of all tied together with grace, I never wanted to be a priest. I wasn't an altar server growing up. Actually, my brother was the one that everyone thought was going to be the priest. He's the doctor now. But for me, I I love church. And to say I love church, I was always comfortable at church. You know, I didn't really love church, but, you know, I always felt at peace when I was in like a liturgy or something like that. It's just one of those calm spots that even when it's boring, it still was peaceful. And I always appreciated that there was something that you could just sense that was good. But priesthood was not something that was on the radar for me in any way until I was like 17 years old. I got confirmed, and confirmation is one of the sacraments in the church. We have 3 sacraments of initiation. You're baptized, you receive First Eucharist, and then you receive confirmation as a teenager. And I didn't receive it at the same time as everybody else. And so when I went through, I studied what we call RCIA, which is the Rite of Christian Initiation for adults. It's becoming Catholic. And I went through those classes, even though I'd already received everything else and been in Catholic school, but I hadn't been studying this stuff every day. I'd been an active Catholic, but just being in those classes for me was so helpful because I had a teacher in there who he just passed away recently, but he used to be a teacher over at Marist High School and teaching religion, and he actually loved the fact that I questioned things and that I challenged things. And he encouraged that. And I think in many ways, David was that guy who, as a teacher, he was the kind of teacher who I became, where we ask the important and the hard questions, even the questions that make people angry, because it takes you to a place that makes you think about the elements of things that you may not think of otherwise, or you may just easily compartmentalize, or whatever the case may be. And so that day when I got confirmed, I was like, hey, maybe priesthood is for me. And then 2 cute girls from the youth group walk over, and I'm like, and maybe priesthood is not for me. Just it's easily dismissed as all things. But as time went on, and as, life just kind of kept going. And then we had the scandal of 2001, which was with all the child abuse. And I remember just being appalled and grossed out by my church, one of many times in the last, multiple decades. But I remember asking myself the question when that was going on. And I was like, God has got to be calling better individuals than this. Like, why are there not people who are like, I'm intolerant of abuse, of any of the abuses. While sexual abuse is an atrocity and disgusting, like, that's not all the Catholic Church has been guilty of, right? I mean, we're talking about there's been misogyny, there has been just neglect with so many marginal groups. There have been, in our endeavor to do westward expansion and the number of, we whitewashed the indigenous people of the United States and around the world. Not solely the Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church was definitely highly participative in this. And so it's one of those things where you're like, we got to do better. I mean, I believe in the faith of Jesus Christ. Like, I believe in the ultimate love that is our God. But, like, the way it gets executed is just astounding to me. And so just thinking about that, wondering, that just drew me in further and further. And the more I studied, the more it transformed me as a person. The more it opened my own mind up personally as a human being, and that being plus the juxtaposition of all my peers, it was a crucible for me going through seminary, because it changed who I was and what I was about and why I really why I was serving within the church as opposed to before. A lot of people, they want to come in and they want to be, that righteous son to cleanse the temple. No, that's not my gig. Sorry.
No.
But at the same time, I don't want to sit there idly and not confront the things that need to be confronted, and so this fiery kid, I met with Wilton Gregory a number of years back. I was still working as a banker, and he said, I'd like you to be one of my priests. And it was almost like the voice of God at that moment. Not that Wilton Gregory was God, but that, was definitely God working through him in that moment, because it reverberated in a particular unique way. And it was like, okay, yeah, no hesitation. Well, I have tons of hesitations when it comes to the church. I mean, the church, the institution itself, is so fundamentally flawed. For 2,000 years, it's been kind of going further off the tracks or further away from what Christ is asking of us. And we don't want to throw out all the traditions, We don't throw the Jesus baby out with the bathwater.
The holy bathwater.
Right? But at the same time, I think there are ways in which we can allow ourselves to be significantly more compassionate and address the needs of the world around us in a way that's not damaging to all the people of God. And it requires a paradigm shift.
So Father Dennis came in here guns blazing. No punches pulled.
Oh, no.
We are here. Thank you so much for that. And there's so much to unpack. And Marilyn, please tell us, what did spirituality look like growing up in your house?
So growing up, my mom is a very strong Christian, and my dad was agnostic. Just didn't know, just hanging out there, not really sure. But I want to say that Sunday school and a Christmas program brought my dad around to just thinking that I think I want to be part of this Jesus thing. And I think it was the kindness of Jesus that sort of drew my father in. And of course, my mom had a lot to do with it. But we had a faith where we went to a Baptist church in California, and we went every Wednesday night. There was a potluck, and Sunday morning there was a sermon, and Sunday night there was a service. And it just was part of our family. We just went to church, and we had friends there, and it was just part of my life. I never questioned it. I always felt like Jesus loved me, and I loved him right back. And it's just been a journey of getting to know God better and falling more in love with him. And now all I want to do is give that love away. And I want to do it in ways that is palatable to other people. I don't want to come off as this perfect little church lady. I want to be real and authentic. So that's kind of my story.
And we don't want to inflict ourselves upon others, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Right.
Do that irreparable good where we go out and we just kind of inflict havoc upon other people.
Right, right. I do not want to push people away.
No, never.
But I think it's interesting because I don't know if it's normal. Father Dennis, you probably have a better perspective on this, where you never question. Mm-hmm. You never question. I think this position, so me who was raised Christian, and as I got into my 30s and now my 40s, have questioned it so much, where I cannot find peace in my heart over who God is in my life and what faith means. Mm-hmm. And I think as like a skeptic and a believer, grill a priest.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I mean, I actually think it's better when people accept faith and they never wrestle with it. I'm not sure that what they're accepting is actually faith. Mm-hmm. I think what they are accepting is, or they're maybe even, they're accepting a framework is really what's happening there. It's not faith. It's just like agreement.
What's the difference then?
Faith, this is very nuanced, but I think faith is something, there's an element of love that compels within it. There's the Latin word caritas. It's love in action, where it's not just love where I appreciate from afar. Mm-hmm. We do this with the skies, we do this with the lawn, but it's almost like the appreciation that we have maybe for like a puppy or something that is just obviously lovable. I'm going with hyperbole because it's most easily understood, but when we see that, you're compelled, as opposed to in that compilation, that desire to be joined with. That's what faith is. It draws us further into a mystery, a sense of, it's almost like the law of gravity, larger bodies attract. Okay, so the closer in you get to God, the more you're drawn into that. And that's really what faith is. And keep in mind, every single one of these answers is going to be insufficient.
Right.
I think it's really important, and please, just because I'm a Catholic priest does not mean I have all the answers. But I what I want to emphasize above everything else is that sense of awe and wonder. Anytime we're talking about faith, anytime we're talking about the divine, anytime we're talking about that sense of unknown, there's two different ways you can go at it. I mean, oftentimes people look at it as fear of the Lord, right? I hear the word fear and I think biological response. It's almost an impulse. It's not something that we have a tremendous amount of control over. Whereas a sense of wonder and awe are very much, you got to focus to have a sense of wonder and awe. There is a cooperation. There's a relationship that's at play there. Mm-hmm. And that's where faith is happening, where there's a curiosity.
So let's talk about fear for a minute. And this is one of our questions that Marilyn and I had is, And this could be an interpretation of the Bible that can be interpreted 6 million other different ways. When people say God-fearing, so when I have questions about God,
Sure.
I think in my logical brain, I believe there is a God. I believe in God. But I don't believe he is fearful. So what is, like, if God is love, why am I fearing God? What am I fearing? Is that obedience?
Well,
Is that being damned to hell? What does it mean, honestly?
no, I think it's a great question. I mean, first off, and please no one be insulted by the following statement. English is a very poor conveyor of thought. English is it's a grab bag of languages. It's got German, all the different roots. It's not delineated. And so when we use certain words in English, they're underwhelming. That in mind. When you look at the way in which the human person has learned over X amount of thousands of years to try to comprehend, try to understand, try to take in, you almost can watch the progression of emotional evolution of humanity kind of go from the beginning of the Old Testament all the way through, the epistles in the New Testament.
You're losing me.
You see people's understanding of something far larger evolve. In the beginning, God is very vengeful. God is making floods. God is sending people out of the garden. God is smiting people. God is doing all kinds of things like this, right? That's how it's perceived. Is God actually necessarily doing all those things? This is where we have faith. This is where there's a sense of wonder. But I think no matter what, it takes an evolution of the mind and the heart to really comprehend the work of the divine present before us.
Mm-hmm. And when I think of fearing God, I feel like that to me is loving God, because I'm full of awe and wonder about this great big God of the universe who loves little old me for exactly who I am.
Right. And so I never use the term fear of God. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't really like that. In fact, fear of God is actually just a brand. It's like, it's something that it's a mentality that I'm not okay with. I'm not comfortable with it. Not to say that we shouldn't be in awe. The best imagery that's ever been put in literature would be like C.S. Lewis's Aslan the Lion, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we talked about
powerful, could eat your head off, but at the same time will walk alongside with you. Mm-hmm. I mean, the potential power is massive, and what has been done in the past is huge, but God's role is to walk along with us. Mm-hmm. We walk in the cool of the garden, going back to that Genesis. It's union, it's connectedness, where we as a species, as a race of people, humanity, where we have gone off the rails is where we think we are disconnected from all those other living things.
Can we stay right there?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, tell us more.
I mean, we're all cosmic stardust, right? We are all collections animated thereof of these elements that we are not disconnected from, but absolutely connected with. Connected to the earth, each and every animal. I mean,
why do we feel so disconnected now?
Oh, because we've made ourselves little gods.
This is right where I'm living. This is right where I'm living.
It's kind of gross, actually.
Tell me more.
The pridefulness and the way in which we've become so lording without actually caring for. It's like the power of the kingdom without any of the compassion of the kingdom. We're lording over all the things that.
What does that look like for an example?
I mean, we see it on a daily basis in terms of the marginalization of society, the way in which we look at even within humanity, we look at other humans as being less than or other. We categorize people. It's done in ways in which many people do not even perceive it happening because they have become so desensitized to it. And we've come to a place where people don't necessarily even respect other people. They say things so carelessly, so callously that they don't even realize that they're actually spreading hate and not even aware of the fact that they're saying hateful things. That's how callous they have become. But anytime I look at anybody and I think I'm better than somebody else in any way, or I judge someone else, I'm putting myself above them. And any time I do that, even when someone cuts me off and I'm like, how dare they? First off, they're not even thinking about you. So like
they're late to work.
They're late to work. Exactly. You aren't even in their scheme. They were thinking 2 cars ahead of you, but you make it about you. Why is that? Well, it's pride. It's woundedness. It's all the other stuff. Because we've acted as if we are bigger than, better than, and then how dare everyone do this to us? And it's really we can use early psychological language. We can use early spiritual language. It's sins of the father. It's the contagion of sin. It's the way in which we choose to continue to perpetuate. It's almost like kinetic evil. We just keep passing it along. And the only way that ends is in the way in which we remind ourselves of how connected we actually are. When we seek to gather ourselves in community, where we ground ourselves in recognizing what we are actually a part of.
You know what's coming to my mind right now?
Yeah.
The image of God, the imago Dei.
Yeah.
Like if we could perceive everybody that we see outside of this room as being bearers of God's image and lovely and beautiful all amongst themselves.
Unique, unrepeatable, perfect as they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Marilyn, this is probably a perfect segue for your experience in Spain. And
oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I was recently in Madrid with my husband, and he was in meetings, and I got to see the city sort of on my own. So I went to this beautiful cathedral, and went everywhere inside the cathedral was just filled with the beauty and love of God, and worship was, I just came out like I probably was shining because I was just feeling so loved by God. And I get out there and I see a woman lying on the sidewalk, and she, just taking up the sidewalk. I stepped over her. I felt like, oh my gosh, look what I just did. I was in this beautiful cathedral. I get out and I step over a homeless woman. How dare I do that? So the very next corner, there's this guy, and he is probably 20 years old, and he was so lame, but he was standing on a crutch, but his leg was like an L shape out there and then down, straight down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just emptied all my pockets of all this little whatever change I had, gave him all my euros, and I felt like that's not even enough. That's not even, I thought, what in the world? This boy is never going to have a good life and never going to get over this. My question is, how do we love other people in a way that really resonates with their hearts?
Sure.
And homeless people, that is just my...
Yeah, it's devastating and it's incredibly difficult to live within and live amidst. I always take it, I am a priest, so I'm going to take it back to scripture on this one, and I'm going to go, well, we always are going to have the homeless, right?
Right. They will
you will always
be
have the
part
poor.
of us, yes.
But here's the thing, and I say this all the time because people are always like, well, you're always going to have the poor. Yeah, you are, but they don't have to suffer so much. It can be that idea of like theophany, how do we deal with the problem of evil in the world, or all these other things. Here's ultimately, when we see the injustice in the world, I need to respond in a way that counters that. That's what a warrior does, right? The warrior sees something that's wrong and they try to rectify it. And they will do whatever it is that they can. And that's basically the only militant language I'm ever going to use in terms of that. And I'm not talking like American warrior. I'm talking like samurai. I'm talking like there is a sense of a moral code, kind of you know what I'm saying when I say that? And I'm not disparaging American warrior when I say that. I'm just saying like there's a different mentality. I could either be overcome with the enormity of injustice in the world, or I can recognize and listen. I tell people, oftentimes people, they think that it's the way in which we speak out that's our first love language. The first love language that any of us have is listening. It has to begin with listening. That's the beginning of our own formation of languages. We hear first, and then we learn to speak. Far too often, though, do we begin by speaking to those who are in need, thinking we already know what it is that they need. And going back to like when I used to serve in the streets in Chicago, like that's why I brought bagels and tobacco and coffee.
Right.
I want to give you as many options of what you may want, and you could take them all.
Right.
But like I want to give you options. I want to give you the dignity so that you feel like a human being again.
Right.
Because that's ultimately what I want to bring to the situation. I want to bring light to that because we all know how dark loneliness and being unseen is. And I want to make sure that I can allow the person, no matter who that is, to feel seen, to feel heard, and to respond in love to that.
Right.
Can we talk for a minute, though, about our judgments? You know,
Sure.
like we see a homeless person, well, I'm not going to give them money because they're just going to go spend it on drugs. And it almost is like our intellectualizing or just a settle of like, I can pass this person and feel okay because the conditions weren't right enough for me to do that. And when I think about it, and there are plenty of times, I live in downtown Atlanta, there are lots, and I have kids in the car, and sometimes I'll give money, and sometimes I'm not making eye contact, and I feel like a jerk about it. But I also think when I am giving them money, if they're going to spend it on whiskey and that's going to make them feel better to sleep on concrete in a cold
Under a
night,
bridge.
Yeah.
Right.
then go for it.
Yeah.
Who am I to judge, you know?
That's my
Right.
take. My job is to bring as much comfort to the person as I possibly can. It's funny because those arguments, those resistances in our lives, the things
Resistance,
that-
yes.
those are the things. There's a great book that's called the War of Art. And in the War of Art, he begins by talking about all these various resistances that all of us have in our own lives. And we have to be aware of what those resistances are. The first resistance that we have when we should be doing something good and we talk ourselves out of it, that's the voice of the world. That's what I would refer to as the voice of sin, actually. It's something that I need to stop for a second and I need to discern that. Because the second voice that comes out is the voice of self. That's how you can tell how good of a person you actually are.
Say it again.
The voice of self is the second one that comes out. It's after that prima facie, that first kind of nasty remark. And you go, no, I really should feed this person. When we allow ourselves to get to that voice of self rather than allow the voice of the world to dominate us. I mean, we really can overcome a tremendous number of obstacles within our own lives. But far too often are we on autopilot and you're just going to operate based on the voice of the world. Forget that. I'm moving on.
Yeah, and you have places to go. And the shrine where you practice priesting,
Where I serve. Yeah.
where you serve. I mean, it invites the homeless in.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like there's so much. There's so much. So I think that question of, am I a good person, is challenged at every single turn. And when is it enough, or when do you not have the ability to give? You know what I mean?
Sometimes you can't give. Sometimes
Yes,
you've given everything
it's
you
so
can.
overwhelming.
But
Right.
here's where we can be better about it. If
Yes,
you know
help
you
us
live
get
in,
better.
You know you live in downtown Atlanta. You know you're going to be encountering people. I mean, there are certain times where you know, like, that dude's hustling folks. Like, and it is a very clear hustle. Those are obvious. Now, I don't want the basic listener to go, that's an obvious hustler, because it's not necessarily to you. But like, this is what I see day in and day out. I make sure in my truck, I've always got bottles of water. Sometimes I'll put $1 or $2 around that bottle of water. I always get a mixture of snacks that are nut-free and that are regular, because nut allergies, most people don't have an EpiPen if you're on the street, but a lot of people still have nut allergies. And so like I keep stuff like that in my car all the time. Most people are hungry. And here's the thing, if someone's an alcoholic and you give them money, that drink might have kept them alive that night.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And so, like, let's not be so, oh, I can't do that. That's a horrible thing. No, that's being compassionate. That's actually loving the person before you. Did you have a bad day? Did you pour a glass of wine after your bad day? I bet you did. Why are you judging? The other one is this, like, we see somebody who's, they're a drug dealer. What forced them into that? That's a high stakes, very dangerous thing. What was life like that seemed like the better alternative?
There's so much systemic oppression
Yeah.
that happens in those communities. I know this firsthand because I've volunteered in these communities for like 6 years for schools, and really was part of the reason why I started this podcast, was because I kept witnessing all of these things that people like me just would have no exposure to,
Sure.
and a lot of judgment, myself included, to cast people out as bad, or they could have pulled themselves up by the bootstraps and figured it out. The starting line isn't always the same, I think is what you're saying.
Never.
And what I wonder, and what I'm so curious about and wrestle with this so much, is my resistance to being obedient to God's word. And there is a lot of hypocrisy that happens, that I notice, that I witness from people who call themselves Christians or religious, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a good Christian?
I mean, I love that question. It's a question that I ask all the time. What does a Christian look like? You know, I remember one of the first homilies that I preached 10 years ago when I first got ordained was, what does a Catholic look like? And I was like, there isn't a thing that a Catholic looks like. I mean, that's the reality. What does a faith-filled person look like? It's somebody who embodies love. It's not necessarily somebody who is a churchy religious person.
So not obedience. I really want to understand obedience.
I mean, obedience depends. I mean, on an earthly standpoint, I mean, obedience is the same way in which we follow what our employer asks of us. You know, I'm working within the framework of what I'm asked to do, and obedience to a person really means I'm just not going to give lip service. But obedience to God is much deeper and much...
Help me understand obedience to God.
Well, first off, God isn't as petty as human beings are, okay? So, like, obedience to God requires a level of discernment. Let's look at, rather than the word obedience, because obedience puts a power dynamic in there that's very weird. Let's look at it as just straight up relationship, a loving, healthy relationship. I need to both be putting into that relationship as well as receiving from said relationship, right? And so am I giving the time to stop, to discern, to just listen, to breathe with God? Am I taking the time to stop and observe the world around me, to see the beautiful creation, the complexity of things that are there? I mean, if I'm not doing those things first and foremost, and I'm just a busybody doing all the church stuff, then I'm a professional. I am not a Christian. I'm not a believer. Because if we are a person that does not stop to reflect, if we are not a person who stops to truly discern, how do I love in this world? Then we're going through the motions. It's a paint by number coloring book. I don't need to be that person. And I don't know that that makes God happy, if I'm being honest. We realize that, I can go back to the Aristotelian teaching, a tree glorifies its maker by its branches growing out. I mean, we too glorify our maker by the way in which we extend it to the human person, the way in which our soul flourishes, the way in which we attune to the needs of our siblings, the way in which we care for others. I mean, that's the biggest momentum. You know, people ask, well, what's the greatest movement in human society? It's when we learn to care for each other, to heal each other, to mend each other's wounds. This is the greatest advancement that we've had as a culture. And so we just kind of have to be these people who are willing to be in relationship, of cycle, not just telling the world what they need, but actually listening and receiving and responding to that in a loving way.
We're back to the listening part.
Always.
I think, so I'm thinking about the listener. Hi, it's Alison. Thanks for listening. Did you know that the game-changing ideas shared on this show are things I can help you implement? If you want me in your corner helping you find more time and energy for what fills you up, go to AlisonHare.com/collective and sign up for a free exploratory call. Give yourself this time. You will be so glad you did. And I'm thinking about, you're probably listening to this and you're thinking, oh yeah, so-and-so needs this. They are such a jerk, you know, but it's hard to look inward and recognize where we are being fallible or where we are being judgy, and can help understand, wait a minute, I need to reach out. Like, I know for me, this is a stupid example, but when I open social media and I know that when I'm getting judgy and jealous, something is going on with me and I have to close it down. And that to me is my trigger, that, and it happens at least once a month, like right around ovulation. But it becomes very palatable. So for me, that's recognizable. And I'm wondering, how do we put this into practice in a way that we identify our own ability to, when our branches are, you want branches that are flexible enough to push things away
Yes.
that aren't serving, but also pull things closer to you that are going to nourish you.
I think I have. Can I?
By all
run
means,
with
you can
this one?
start. Yeah,
Okay, Father Dennis. He's got all these great answers. I just have the ones that are just kind of coming out of my heart. I feel like
those are good too.
Okay, when we're listening, like you talked about discernment, when we're listening and discerning the voice of God, we're spending time with Him. We're getting to know Him. We're having quiet reflection with Him, right? And so I feel like that gives us knowledge about how to truly love other people, how to truly get out there and be salt and light and respond to people who are not like us in such a loving way, in a way that astounds us. Like, whoa, was that me? Did I just say that? I feel like it comes back for me. It comes from knowing God and making Him known. Like knowing who He is and how loving and kind. And Alice and I talked about this a while ago about how God could be a perfect father. Like none of us had perfect fathers. We had earthly fathers. We had human fathers, but God loves us so perfectly. And I feel like if I can just spend time with my perfect Father who loves me so well, that somehow is going to give me the words and the actions that follow up my faith and push me out the door and make me uncomfortable and push me to my limits of getting out there and doing kind of what you do, Father Dennis. Like, let's go meet people where they are. Let's listen to their stories. You said our ears are probably our most powerful tool in that is, can you tell me what we did? What's your story? What happened to you? Why are you here on the street? I don't know. So I feel like hearing God's voice helps me know that I'm loved and I can give that love out to other people.
I think that's a huge part of it, without a doubt. And I think that's massive. Your listeners are a curious type. They're so you probably have a fair number of neurodivergents that are listening amidst your crew. So this is an important element.
Interesting.
I don't even know what that means.
Neurodivergent
is ADHD or non-typical thinkers.
Okay.
Which is a huge part of my own life. But like, because you have such a curious listener, you're going to have somebody who they may not know what's even going on in their own heads. There's like...
I don't.
Exactly. Okay, so...
I don't.
Yeah.
Listening to you, Marilyn, I'm like, that would be so nice. I wish.
That's a beautiful plan. I really
like that. That would be
that.
so nice if I felt that way, but
you just don't feel it.
I understand a different language, and I think the seeking that I'm doing, how do I know this is God? I can intellectually believe it's God and hope it's God, but why don't I feel it and know it unmistakably? And that is where I wrestle.
And that's the hard part for everybody. We don't really know our interior movements very well. We recognize anxiety because anxiety is easy to recognize, right? Not necessarily, actually. I mean, there's a difference between restlessness and anxiety. They're very similar. But restlessness there's something inside myself that knows what I ought or could or should do. Whereas anxiety is like, this might happen or this might happen, and it's more of a fearful response. Yeah. And it's nuanced. It's very close, but it's very different. The best tool that anyone can ever do for themselves to understand what's happening here, journal. Every single person should journal. It taps into 3 different parts of your brain at the same time, which doesn't happen naturally. It only happens when we're writing. People will be like, well, can I type it out? You can, but there's something about the needing to go through and physically write something out. It works differently than in the mechanical of our mind. And so, journaling, ask yourself, what am I feeling? And then we can always ask ourselves the question, well, who am I? Like, who am, how does God see me? How do I see me? And these questions are really good because then you're not bouncing all over the place trying to figure out, like, where do I fit in? No one fits in anywhere, friends. Like, these are arbitrary, made up seat positions for all of us. You have to figure out who you are and be that. And the world's going to tell you what they think you should be, but that's not what you are. Only you really know who you are.
I feel like that identity thing is so important.
It's huge.
And the question we could ask God is, who do you think I am, God? Hey, what do you think about me, God? And if we get our satisfaction and our identity and who we truly are from God, I feel like that is, it's almost like he's laying his love on us, right? With, I love you and you are chosen and you are perfect and you don't have to change. I love you
as you are.
As you are right now. You are created in my image. And I feel like social media is not going to give us a good identity, make us feel good about ourselves.
Oh, God, no.
So if we turn that off and then circle back to God and say, and journal like you're saying, well, who do you think I am, God? And listen.
No, social media is the quickest way to have a very unhealthy view of self.
Mm-hmm.
I only post on social
This
media.
is news to no one.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely.
We are stating the obvious.
Yet, we are still...
We're addicted. We are addicted.
Well, it's a quick, easy dopamine hit.
But I'm kind of stuck on the identity thing. And I think the relevance of more prominence around gender identity. And I know Marilyn had a lot of questions around that as well, that I think would be really interesting to understand the perspective as people are wrestling and grappling with gender identity.
So much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
sexual identity and like being in your skin, like who does God see me as?
I know it's a big question.
it's a lot. Yeah.
I don't even know how to unpack it. I don't even know what I'm asking except to say, how can we point people to find like a perfect, the love that they're looking for, the love and acceptance and belonging that they really need.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Transgender has been in the news, right? Like transgender, what does that look like from a Catholic or Christian faith?
Mm-hmm.
it looks very difficult from a Catholic or Christian perspective because far too many Christians look at Scripture as if it's a biology book. Rather than recognizing that it was a very loose framework of how people understood things when they were scribing it down on whatever they were. I think we need to recognize that the complexity of the human person is massively vast. And when it comes down to gender, when we try to reduce anything to be a 1 or a 0, we ignore the infinite decimals between the two. Okay. I think that based on the complexity of what we have introduced into this world by way of artificial hormones, preservatives in our foods, there's a myriad of different things, and you can go way conspiracy theory on it, but just without, superfluous government interaction, we have introduced so many foreign bodies to ourselves that lots of things are happening. Within climate, things are happening. We are seeing things happening within the ecology of certain animals. Like there are amphibians that are changing genders within waters. Fish are doing the same thing. It's challenging to seek answers from an institution that has not been focused on that. You're not going to find those answers there. But ultimately, I don't have to have answers to treat each and every one of my siblings with dignity. I don't have to understand it to be compassionate and loving to these individuals. I would not tell someone who was unable to see that they were not able to have contacts or glasses. I would not make someone who was struggling with a leg that was weaker, I would not make them walk without a walker or a cane or crutches. I would not make an ADHD kid go through X amount of years of school unmedicated if it would help them. Very similarly, I would not force anyone to go through life with depression without an antidepressant. These gender affirming care that we provide to people who are experiencing gender dysphoria is every bit as important. We are providing for them something that is not necessarily available within their own body naturally. This does not mean that they are broken or that they are or anything like that. This is just how they are. And we need to make sure that we provide for them whatever it is so that they can feel comfortable in their own skin. I mean, this is universal. Why does this scare people? I'm not going to speak for anyone else. I would say that it's charged with a lot of unknowns. The more unknowns within something, the more something is not understood by others, the more that it is vilified. And so I think that's a hot topic right now because it's an unknown. I think that right now we're in a stage of far-right extremism, which we were literally just talking about this on the news this morning. So that's not a spoiler. The reality is that within our religious communities, we have become extremists as well. So what does a Christian look like? Actually, not like most of what you see represented. A Christian is not going to be like that. A Christian is going to accept and love the person that's before them no matter what. They're not going to be conditional and say, well, I won't use these pronouns or I won't do this or, wow, that's particularly rude when you put limitations upon how you would address someone because of your faith, because it's not your faith that teaches you to be a jerk. There is nothing within your faith that tells you to be like that, disrespectful to another person. And if you want to say because God created man and woman in Genesis, that's fine. But even within that, there's a lot of misogyny, and even in translation, there's misogyny. To say that it was taken from the rib because the actual translation would mean from the side. It's a half of the other person, not meaning actual gender or even less than or just it's the entirety. And so that's a whole lot of ramble just to get to the point to say we need to be respecting of the entire person and all their needs and whatever it is that we can do to love the person before us. Recognize that this is a person who's not doing this because it's fun. They're doing this because they've been in anguish their entire life. And that for the first time, they might even feel a little bit comfortable, even despite the fact that you're treating them the way you are. They are still more comfortable than they were. And so it's tough because there's a lot of people that are like, well, my faith tells me that this shouldn't happen. Where does your faith tell you that? Where within, there might be a line within a catechism someplace that says this or that, but your faith does not tell you to be discriminating to another person. Your faith does not tell you to be hurtful or unkind or lacking compassion. It's tough. I'm very fortunate to be at a parish that is incredibly welcoming, and we have a number of transgender individuals who come to pray with us every Sunday, and I love that.
And it's Catholic Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in downtown Atlanta, the oldest freestanding church in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Right? It was the one that did not burn down during the what was it? The Civil War?
It was during the Civil War.
Yeah.
And we were a field hospital for both the North and the South during the Civil War.
Wow.
All are welcome. All are still welcome. We are the hands of Christ in downtown Atlanta.
You guys participate in the Pride Parade, and I think what I have been so impressed with and why we are members of your church, despite my conflicted and contradictory walk in faith, is because of how inclusive you guys are, that there are homeless people that are praying right along with well-to-do people that travel from miles and miles and miles to go to your services.
Yeah. It makes an interesting mass because, especially daily mass where there's not 100 people there, but you got 8 people there and it's 2 attorneys, 2 homeless people and maybe a couple that I'm marrying, that I've got to do marriage prep afterwards. How do you preach to all those people? And the answer is love. And it's not hippy dippy love. It's constructive. It's what helps people work through life. It's teaching people, even if I have very little, that I can be generous with that. And that I'm called to build community. That's the goal, right? So yeah, it's a fascinating thing where people will ask, well, how do you do this ministry? I'm writing an article right now for, what are the top things that we can do to be more inclusive as a parish? And I'm like, I don't know how to do it wrong. I recognize when there is something that may push someone away or make someone feel uncomfortable. And I'm like, we got to get rid of that. And then it's also making sure that people feel seen as they come in and welcome as they come in without alienating anybody else at the same time. And it's a tricky dance, especially in the Catholic world. It's a very tricky dance.
Yeah. But if we're called to love God and love each other, that's all we're supposed to do. Just love each other.
Love them. Encounter them where they are.
Yes.
Help them in their journey to move forward. there's so many people within all sects of Christianity that they equate Christianity with prohibition. And there was that. I mean, that's what the Puritans were. But the problem is that was also a reaction to Catholicism. And so when Catholics act like Puritans, I'm like, what's wrong with you people? But it's because, forgive them, they know not what they're doing. I mean, it's a cultural thing. It's our priests that have taught them that too. I mean, incorrectly, but I mean, this is the reality.
It's interesting to think about putting this into practice and knowing you, Father, that you felt like you were called to be good trouble
Yes.
for the Catholic Church. And this
I
is
love that expression.
Yeah, this is a monumental shift of what does it look like for you personally to live this in a way and be able to witness people opening their hearts in a way that maybe other churches, other walks in faith have not been able to.
The most important thing is people knowing that they have a community that they can be a part of. I try to explain this to people on a regular basis. It's like, why do people join gangs? It's not for protection. It's not for anything. It's belonging. Mm-hmm. That's why people join gangs. Mm-hmm. They want to be a part of something. I mean, ultimately, that's the goal, right? We're trying to gather people. The way in which I have to do it on my terms. I mean, that's something that a number of years back I kind of realized. When I was working at the school on the South Side 6 years ago, and I'm serving, and it's a predominantly black school, Catholic school, but on the South Side. And you've got a weird confluence of kids from Peachtree City, white kids from Peachtree City that came from wealthy families. And then, a lot of the poorer kids that were coming from other parts of, Carrollton, other areas around there. And gosh, what a culture clash it was. And I realized just kind of being in there and seeing and watching this dynamic play out. And I realized, I'm a straight white Christian male, and I could walk into any room and no one's ever going to question me walking in there. I was like, I'm not comfortable with being so comfortable. And that's when I started growing my hair out, and that's when I re-pierced my ears. And I did a couple other things because I was like...
You have tattoos?
No.
Okay.
I don't. Not that I'm against ink, actually. I haven't found the artist that I actually really want to put something permanent upon me. But it's actually, the more ink, the more piercing, the more open usually a person is. Mm-hmm. I love meeting with people at dive bars for that very reason, because no one's listening to what you're saying and they don't care. They're glad you're there. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be mindful of when I walk into a room, when the white lady tilts her head like, why does Father have long hair and earrings? The judgment. And I feel it as soon as I walk in the room. I need to feel that. I need to know what that's like. I need to know what it is to be judged, so that I do not bring that into any other encounter, so that I never react to somebody in a way like people react to me. Now, I don't mind it because I'm really just taking out the lowest hanging fruit by doing what I do. Like if you judge me based on how I look and you've never heard me preach, baby, that's on you. But it lets me tune out the most superficial of the bunch. Mm-hmm. And then I can work on those who are really willing to hear and those who are really willing to listen. Mm-hmm. And it's just unapologetically being who you are. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me. Like, I couldn't fit into a group of my peers if I did. I tried for a very long time. And I was miserable.
Where do you belong, Father Dennis?
With everybody else.
Where do you feel like you most belong?
That's a hard one to ask somebody with ADHD. I've never felt like I really belong anywhere. I've always kind of felt alien, even within my own family. Like I am the black sheep of, I'm the cycle breaker. I'm the intolerant of continuation.
Isn't that crazy? The Catholic priest is the black sheep.
Right.
With a white collar. Yeah. No, I mean, it's okay though, because that's actually what I want to do in what I do in society too. I want to break cycles. Listen, if Catholicism was done correctly, then every church would be full everywhere. Without debate, because it would be nothing but love. And none of the judgment. But right now we have just so much extremism and so much judgment and so much hate. And it's not Catholic. Now, it's harbored within the Catholic Church, but it's not Catholic itself. But tribalism is ultimately the struggle. I mean, we want to gather, but we don't want to gather based on likeness. We want to gather based on diversity, actually. I want to bring as much to the table as I can, not all the same stuff. That's boring.
Right. But okay, so if I saw you on the street, Father Dennis, and you were wearing maybe your collar, maybe not.
Depends on the day.
Depends on the day. You are handsome.
Thank you.
Look hip. Your long hair is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Clean. I mean, it's
Usually.
right now it's in a ponytail. I'm saying
I'm watching his face get red. Continue.
No, but
I don't take compliments very well. Thank you, though.
no, but I feel like you are a good-looking guy who, if you're walking down the street and you might wear a collar, maybe not, I would want to talk to you. And you're bringing it. You're bringing the gospel to people in a way that is attractive.
Accessible.
Approachability is
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I reckon, and I learned this when I was working, I was doing my CPE during my training, and I walk in, and I was kind of insistent. They're like, you need to wear a suit and tie for your CPE, which is clinical pastoral education. And I was like, I'll never be wearing a suit and tie when I'm working.
Right.
So I'm going to wear a collar, and that's, the Roman collar, and that's what I need to get used to. Fascinating enough, I walked in one room, and the guy was like, I don't want any fucking priests in here. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, I'm going to be honest with you. And I just took the collar off and I threw it. And I was like, I don't either. Let's have a conversation. I was like, because I'm not ordained. I said, I work for the company. I said, but I'm not there yet. And it ended up being a relationship with this guy it was phenomenal. And I was able to be there with him at the end of his life and really like spend quality time with somebody who was wrestling with faith. And not as much wrestling with Catholicism, but he was wrestling with God. And because I was willing to, throw the collar aside,
Right.
like that meant everything to him. He's like, oh, I'm good with this. If people aren't comfortable with you, they're not going to bear all of themselves, know? And oftentimes when people see people, or especially clergy, and they look all put together, I'm sorry, I'm not that put together. Life is messy and so am I.
Right.
I need someone who is approachable. And my goal ultimately is to be the person that I needed growing up.
Marilyn, I would love to know, when do you feel like you are fully embodied with God?
When I'm sharing with other women, I get lit up when I get to talk to someone like you, Alison. I mean, I've told you that before. This feeds my soul. This makes me feel like I'm just sharing God's love with you. And you've asked me so many hard questions that I cannot answer. I don't have the theological answers, but I hope that you see a little bit of the kindness of Jesus in me, and that I'm sharing that with you, because that's all I can do. But it lights me up when I can share Jesus with other women.
I love that. What about you, Father Dennis? When do you feel the most embodied and lit up with Jesus?
I think there are a number of different times that it happens. I mean, like when I'm in the midst, like when I'm preaching and it's on, I mean, like, and there's that reciprocal. It's when you're preaching and you're on, it's like having a conversation with the entire congregation at once. And like, there's just something about it that it's just, it embodies that. When I get to teach in a college setting, or when I'm doing formation for the men that are getting ordained to be deacons, I love teaching college. And so when I'm teaching, and I say college because high school is a different desire. College is a want, especially graduate studies, which is what I teach. And there's a want, there's a insatiable thirst. And I want to try to feed that as much as I possibly can, and even maybe grow that thirst. Because I think that wanting, that yearning, that curiosity, that awe, that's the essential piece to faith. And so when I'm igniting that in the hearts of others, that's where I'm like, this is it. And I love it. I'm terrified before I get in front of a group of people. I'm an extrovert without a doubt, but I have terrible social anxiety, being growing up ADHD, and so I'm terrified. At the same time, it puts me on fire. It's simultaneously, which
You
is
seem
just
to
a
live
wild
in the
thing.
discomfort. You seem to thrive in the discomfort.
Discomfort's, I mean, yeah. Well, I'm okay with it because I don't really understand what comfort is. And my hair is brown now, but I mean, it was fiery orange when I was a kid. I mean, like, I've never been able to hide. My voice carries, and so I've below the radar, not me. If I'm going to be noticed, no matter what, let me do something worth noticing. I guess that's how I look at it. My famous line, if I'm going to get, fired for saying what I should be saying, don't threaten me with a good time, right? It's, okay. I mean, like, I let's do what needs to be done. I think far too many people cower away from that. And
you're gutsy. You are gutsy.
if people can be so bold in hate, then I can be so bold in love.
Oh, I love that. I got to write that down. So, Father Dennis, when you said when you're talking to the entire congregation, are you looking at notes or are you looking at faces?
Oh, faces.
Okay, because
Yeah,
can you veer off your message, or what do you, when you're speaking like that, does it just...
Intellectually, I pack like a nervous traveler. And so I've got 5 or 6 ideas of kind of how I want the homily to go. But I don't know who's going to necessarily be there until they're there, right?
Right.
And so I kind of wait for those touch points. I mean, I did sales before. I was in banking and I used to do large sales presentations. And if I can turn people on talking about banking products, I can do it about something I actually believe in, like God and love. And you could tell where you're making those connections. And so you build upon those things. You kind of know age groups. You start to know your flock.
Yeah.
And so you can bring even more and more the longer you're in a congregation. Or if you know it's a congregation that has a specific, emphasis, or, like when I'm preaching in Black Parish, it's very different than, stuffy white folks on the north side. It's a different prayer experience, and it's a different preaching experience as well.
Wouldn't you love to see him in a Black church?
Yeah.
That's fun. That's where my formation was too, though. I served at St. Peter and Paul over in Decatur when I was doing my internship. And then when I was up in Chicago, St. John's on 22nd, I did a bunch of parishes that were, I've not served in a lot of white parishes actually. And I'm good with that because it's not my comfort zone. And it's a place where I can be me and do the work that I do, and it's received really well. And that means a lot to me.
So I wonder, as we close out, this podcast is called Late Learner. What have you learned lately that you were wrong about?
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm wrong about everything. The more you grow into anything, I think the more you realize that it's not so much that we're wrong, most things are just incomplete. There's a variety of facets that we don't necessarily see or understand, or maybe even we're incapable of comprehending. But I think the greatest part about, growing older and I am just open to the wisdom that comes in time. That's the biggest thing for me is as I continue to serve, that I am continuing to become something different than I ever even thought. Growing up, I never could view myself as an older person. I couldn't view myself growing up because I was just trying to survive. I think I was in survival mode well into my 30s. And so now I'm going into my mid 40s now, and getting to see who I'm growing into being. And I realized I didn't really have any of those adult figures that I was like, oh, I want to be like them when I grow up. I had an image of me, but I actually realized I've become who I wanted to be. And then recognizing myself as that person. And I think the biggest thing was I didn't know that I could even get there, because nobody really, I had to fight. Nobody believed in me. Everything was a fight. Getting through seminary, nobody thought I'd even get to the finish line, and now I'm 10 years into priesthood, and people are like, oh, he's still a priest. A lot of people have bailed.
Hasn't quit yet.
He has not quit yet. He's that damn stubborn. No, but it's that I'm that damn passionate. I don't want to walk away from Jesus because of Peter. The reality is that the people of God are profoundly challenging, but the work that I get to do is incredible.
Can somebody tell me what Peter's done?
Well, Peter's flawed, right? Where Jesus isn't. And so we would refer to Peter as Peter's the head of the church. He puts the church into the hands. Jesus puts the hands of the church into the hands of Peter, but Peter screws things up. And so we never leave Jesus because of the way that Peter acts.
Got it.
Everybody outside of Jesus is going to screw it up. It's the way it's been forever. Do we have an expectation, or do we cooperatively accompany? Because cooperative accompaniment is really the apostolic role. It's not to control. Control is in opposition to love. It's to learn, to walk alongside with, and to embody that love. That's really all it is. Everybody else is trying to do all this controlling and elimination, and no. Don't do that. Let them learn. Let them see, let them explore. And that's what it's about.
I love what you just said about walking alongside someone. I think there's a verse somewhere in the New Testament that talks about we can comfort others with the comfort we've received from God.
Yes.
And I like that, walking alongside someone else, giving them whatever comfort you could possibly give them.
Cooperative accompaniment. That's the word that I've been using.
I love that.
She's writing it down.
Yes.
It's a good phrase.
Mm-hmm.
This has been such an amazing conversation. Father Dennis, could you close us out in prayer?
Yeah, of course. And so before we kind of get to this place, I want everyone to take just a big, deep breath in through your nose. Long exhale through our mouths. One more inhale and breathe in that Spirit of God as we pray. Merciful Creator, we thank you for the gift of this day. We thank you for the gift of faith and curiosity, those things that draw us into you. We ask that you fill our hearts with the spirit of your love so that as we go forth into this world, that we may be your light, that we may be your compassion, that we may be your grace, and we may be your healing. Send us forth to be the presence of love in this world that changes hearts and that illuminates the darkness of the world. Help us always to be helpful. Help us always to listen, and guide us always to bring your light. And we ask this all through your love. Amen.
Amen. Beautiful. Thank you both. Oh, Marilyn's crying.
I knew it was going to happen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison.
Oh my God, that conversation. Father Dennis, thank you for your honesty and your relentless commitment to being bold in love and helping us understand God and each other a little bit better. And the prayer at the end was really nice. Marilyn O'Neill, thank you for being so generous with your faith and pouring so selflessly into me and my walk. I've linked everything in the show notes. If you were as moved by this episode as I was, will you take 30 seconds to write a review on your favorite podcast player and leave me 5 stars? Tell me about what you learned. And if you're looking to explore a new chapter for yourself and would like someone in your corner to help you pave a new path so you are not doing it alone, let's have a chat. Go to AlisonHare.com/collective. Let's talk. And I'll link it in the show notes as well. And as we wrap up today, I promised you a second round of the good stuff to close us out. The surprisingly true, useful fun fact. Did you know that if you partake in the Catholic tradition of meat-free Fridays, it could cut carbon emissions and help the environment? Based on a study done from the University of Cambridge, assuming that Catholics didn't eat meat on Fridays, this would save over 1,000 tons of carbon or 55,000 tons per year. A profound impact. According to a Green Print study, 78% of people are more likely to make eco-friendly purchases and choices. So this is a great way to make a small change in your world to make a big impact worldwide. Pass it on. I've linked the studies in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening and late learning right alongside me. As always, be good to yourself so you can be better for others. See you next time.